In this video, we will be covering the References tab in Microsoft Word right up here, and we will actually be covering most of the buttons in here as they are all pretty useful. So the first thing we need to do in order to talk about the Table of Contents button is make headings for some sections. So a table of contents, as you know, is at the beginning of a document saying where everything is in the document. And yeah, you could type it up manually, but that's the last thing you want to do because you'll always have to check it, make sure that numbers, page numbers are correct, and any titles that were changed would have to be updated. So the table of contents button up here is a great way, so it does it automatically. Anytime you make a change, the table of contents will change. If I were to go into an empty area right here and click on table of contents, you'll notice we'll just pick the first option for these videos. The first option says heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. If I click on that, it says there's no table of contents entries. You need to make entries first. You can't just create a table of contents with no content. So what it's saying is there's no content yet. So let me show you how to make the content. And by the way, the lab for this week is going to focus mainly on this references tab. So make sure you pay attention. So what we need to do, again, is we need to make headings. Headings 1, 2, and 3. So let's go to each of these tabs. Or not each of these tabs, sorry, some of these titles of these sections. So click on Highlight References tab and go to the Home tab and make it a heading 1. And then maybe the Insert tab is a heading 1. And the Print Screen is a heading 1. And the Page Layout tab is a heading 1. So those are all the main headings, and then you might have subheadings, and I'm just going to make these up. Let's pretend this is a subheading, you know, part 1 of the Page Layout tab will be a heading 2. And then let's say this is a heading 2. I'm just randomly choosing some things. Let's say this is a heading 2, just to give you an idea. Now let's pretend this is a heading 2. And then you might have a heading 3. Underneath this would be a heading 3. So hopefully you get the idea. And then normally you'd go back up to the top of your document where your table of contents would be. Make some room for it and go back to the References tab and choose the first option under the table of contents. And there it is. What appears in a table of contents is the headings. And I mentioned before in the Home tab video that these headings are kind of reserved. You don't want to use them unless you mean to, because they will be there. This is where they're used for the table of contents. And we'll also use them for cross-references in a little bit. So what's awesome about this is if these get changed, notice like this Page Layout tab is on page 1. If this ends up going to the next page, let's say I put a page break in here, and now it's on the next page, up here you can update the table. I usually right-click and press, oops, where is it? You can right-click and update, well, I'll just press this button right there, Update Table. And it says, do you want to update just the page numbers or the entire table? The entire table would include all the words. So I usually just pick Update Entire Table. And look, all of the numbers change. So that you would not want to do this manually because you'd have to change those every time something, you know, was modified. And even these headings would change if they would change automatically. So that's the table of contents, and we'll return to referencing those in a minute. Okay, so let me scroll back down. The next thing is we need to make, in the references section, I'm going to skip over to captions for a second here. So I need to put, let's say there's a figure in my document. Maybe there's a picture of a dog. Okay, let me put in a picture of a dog. Dog. There's a dog. Ooh, insert. Okay, there's my dog. And so normally every picture, every figure, every table, every equation has some kind of title either above or below it. You know, this might say figure 1, a dog, right? Now, you don't want to type this in like I just did, because what if this becomes figure 2, you know, if you put another figure up here above it? And you need this to update automatically. So you don't type these things in. What we're going to use is what we call, in the References tab, caption. So wherever you want the caption to go, usually below or above the picture, click on Insert Caption. And right there automatically says figure 1, and you can type in dash dog. And so it'll recognize that. This could be a figure, it could be a table, it could be an equation. You can make a new label for all the pictures you're using, or tables or graphs or whatever. You know, you can make up anything you want, but I just choose the default. Okay, and there it is, figure 1, dog. Now the next thing is, like I said, if you put another picture above it, let's put a cat above this one. And if I put in a caption for the cat, references, insert caption. Look, it says figure 1, but I already had a figure 1. Well, it knows that the next figure will automatically become figure 2 since, there it is, since it's below figure 1. So that's the beauty of these. Okay, now if we were to make a bunch of these figures, you might want to have a table of figures. Okay, so it says right here, insert table of figures. It might be equations, it might, there's, you know, depending on how technical your document is, you might have other things. So, you know, underneath your table of contents, you might have something called table of figures. And now we will insert table of figures. And it will ask us, do we want all of the equations, all of the figures, all of the tables, all of the pictures, if you made up a different label. We only have figures right now, so I'll just say OK. And here's my table of figures. And again, this is updatable. See how it's gray in here? That's called a field, and all fields can be updated automatically. So it says what page number it's on, and that will change. And so what's nice is if you change this figure down here, you know, if you want to spell it differently, or here's doggy, it'll change up there in that table of figures if you update it. Okay, now the next thing is sometimes you want to refer to these figures within the document, right? So somewhere along the line, it might say, you know, in a paragraph above it, it might say, I saw a pretty dog once. See figure 2 below. You've probably seen that in documents. See, now this is called a cross-reference. That's this button right here, cross-reference. You're referencing something, or you're cross-referencing something. So you don't, again, you do not want to type figure 2, because what if that changes to a figure 3? Then you'll have to go through your document and make sure they all match. So you want to use the cross-reference. So I'm going to delete this word, and I'm going to insert a cross-reference. And it's what type of reference? I'm referencing down here at the bottom of the reference, I'm referencing the figure. Okay, which figure am I referencing? The cat or the dog? Well, I'm going to choose the dog. And then it asks, do you want to reference the entire caption or just maybe the page number or the label? Let me show you what that does. Let's do the entire caption first. There it is. It says see figure 2. And if I click on that, notice it's gray. That means I know that it was created using one of these buttons up here. Just like this one, if I highlight it, that little 2 is gray because it's an automatic updatable field. So right here it says see figure 2 doggy below. I might say, instead of saying below, I might say see figure 2 doggy on page X. And again, I don't want to type in page 6 because what if that changes? So what page is he on? Well, again, I'm referencing something, so it's again a cross-reference. And we're referencing the page number that figure 2 is on. So that's what these buttons are. One has, so the label is the word doggy. The number is the word figure 2. And then the page number is what page it's on. So you can choose, different options. So let me insert the page number. And so it says now, notice if I highlight this line, everything that's in darker gray is something that's updatable, a field. And so if this were to change, that were to change. And that's the way to do these kind of documents when you're making a manual or some kind of book or whatever. You want to have references. You never want to type in the numbers manually because they're going to change, and it would be a nightmare to have to go back and change them all. So that's a cross-reference. Sometimes you might want to reference, like up above, I could say, see the section on Insert tab on page 1 or page 2, I think it was. Okay, so I can reference headings, and that's another reason you'd want to use headings, is when you want to reference them later. So again, I don't want to type this in because what if the heading is spelled, what if I change the heading and it becomes something different? So we insert a cross-reference, and we are not referencing a figure anymore, we are referencing a heading. Okay, so a heading, and you can see here there's other ones you can reference. And it shows here a list of all the headings we made earlier. So this was the Insert tab, there it is. Okay, and it only shows up because it's a heading. It will not show up if you didn't make it at least a heading 1, 2, or 3. And so do I want to say, see, I want to put in the heading text and I want to put in the page number. Okay, so let's see what happens right here. I have to put this in on page 5. So now all of this stuff is a cross-reference to that heading. It says see section on Insert tab on page 5, and those are both updatable fields. That's the way you want to do these. So cross-references is when you are referring to a caption or a heading or a figure or table, something like that. All right, so that covers those. The next thing is, sometimes I mentioned, what if this number changes? You might have to right-click on it and press Update Field. And you don't want to go into every single one of these and update each field individually. So it says right here in red, to update all fields in a document, press Control A, and then press F9, the function key. So you can update everything all at once if you want. Okay, now let's go back to back here where it says Footnotes. This is great for if you're taking an English class or you're writing a memo or some kind of document where you need to refer to, citations and stuff. So it says right here, put in footnotes and endnotes. So maybe let's describe the difference. If we put in right here the first button, click on Insert Footnote, and it says the number 1, you'll see down here it says the number 1. And I could say, I found this on, some website like Microsoft.com. Now, this is not the way you would refer to a footnote. You'd have to look up formatting footnotes and stuff in somewhere else. I'm just showing you that if you want these little asterisks or these little numbers to appear, you've seen these in other documents, I'm sure. This is how you do it. So this is called a footnote because it's down here in the foot of the document. An endnote is the same thing as a footnote, except it goes at the end of a document. So depending on what you need, sometimes people like to put all of their little notes on each page as you go, or you can make them all at the end of a chapter or something like that. So if we insert an endnote, notice it says, it took me all the way to the bottom. See, I'm at page 8 now. It took me all the way to the end of the document, and it will put all of my endnotes in the same place. So if I were to put another endnote, insert another endnote, there's number 2. And so if I want to say, something special about this, like this only occurs in certain situations, or, I want to qualify that, whatever, you've seen these. This is how you would do it. So footnotes and endnotes. Citations, I wish I had this when I was in college because one of the biggest headaches is formatting all of your references for your bibliography. Say you're using a book or a journal or an article or a website and you're using information from that and you want to cite it. This is your best friend right here. So you have maybe teachers in the past who told you to use the APA style or the Chicago style or the MLA style. Word manages all of that for you. So let's pretend somewhere in this document we want to insert a citation. So you go and click on where it's going to be and add new source. And this is great. Let's say it's a book. All you do is just fill out as much information as you know. And let's do this one. Dr. Seuss. Title, I don't know. Cat in the Hat. Year, I don't know. 1962? I have no idea. Beverly Hills. Oops. Publisher, I don't. Westinghouse. I'm just making this up. All right. And then press OK. And you'll notice it says right here, Seuss, right there. And so you're citing a reference. Now, that's not, what about all the other information? Where did it go? As you type up your paper and you insert citations, a whole list of them will appear. Okay? And at the end of the document, after you're all done and you've filled all of those in for every book, journal, article, whatever, you go to the end of your document where you're going to make your bibliography. And all you do is click on Bibliography and the first option. And notice right here, it says Seuss, Dr. Cat in the Hat, all of this. It automatically formatted it for you. If you want the APA, you just change it to the APA. You don't have to worry about where's the semicolon go, what's in underlined, what's in italicized font. It's all done for you. So this is amazing to work with here. So again, anytime you need to cite something, something you used, you will just insert the citation wherever it goes, and then fill out as much as you can. Let me show you one more. Insert new source, and it might not be a book. It might be a website. And so you just fill in as much as you know, and it will automatically populate. So that is this section right here. The last section, I believe, will be the index. Sometimes, you look at the back of a book or a textbook, and there's an index. Perhaps you wanted to know every place the word the, okay, was in this document, right? Let me show you what I'm talking about. If I go down to the bottom, and this will be called my index, right? And I want to show the word the. Where does it appear in this document? Now that's that's a lame word to choose. Maybe something better like end notes. Or let's say header. What page is header on? It's on. We'd have to go and find it, and we've found it before. We use the Control F and type in header, and it appears in 3 results. It appears here on page 5, again on page 5, and then down in the index. So really, it's just on page 5, right? Page 5. So you can manually go and find the words, but the way you want to do it is you're not going to do every word in the index, just the ones that are important to you. So like headers and footers, that's kind of a topic that we covered. So I might go up to where I first found it, right here, and I'm going to mark entry. So let me close this. I will highlight that word and say mark entry. Okay. And then I'm marking just that very specific word header in that one specific spot. So I would click on mark. But if I want to mark it every place it appears in the document, then I would mark all of them. Well, in this case, it doesn't matter because it only appears on page 5. So I'm going to mark and press close. And notice it turned on that paragraphs button, that hide show button from the home page. So you can go in there and just shut that off. And so now we come down to the bottom, and I can, in my References tab, insert index, and then say yes. And right there, when I insert an index, it only inserts the things that I have marked. Okay, so let's mark another one. Let's do the word the, because I know it appears in more places. So let's see. Now I can't find one, of course. How about the word and? That'll appear everywhere. So here's the word and. I'm going to mark the entry. I think I have to highlight it. And do I want to mark just that one word or all of them? Let's mark all, just to see what happens. And again, it always turns on this button when you do that. Okay, so I just marked it, so it should appear in the index. Well, I have to update my index. So you right-click, update field, and there it is. The word and, it appears on pages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I chose the word and here on page 8 and just marked it and didn't mark all, then it would just show page 8. So that's how you would mark. You would go in and be very intentional on which words you're picking to show up in your index. Of course, you wouldn't want the word and, but you would want the word developer or bibliography or basically keywords that you want people to be able to go back and find. And so that is your index buttons. So what's really important to know from this video is when you're creating things, references, footnotes, captions, all of this stuff you see in this tab up here, headings, you always want to use the tools up here. You never want to type them in manually, because it could change, and you know the page number it will be on might change, or the way you make the title different. And if it doesn't update automatically, you'll have to go through and read your entire document every single time you make a change to make sure it updates. While if you use one of these fields to create these references, it will automatically update, and so it's the best way to use Word correctly. And that is it. Thank you.